where we're going to be diving into childhood stress and the onset of adult autoimmune diseases. Now, this is something that I am deeply passionate about, as most of you probably know, with me having written this big book called Metaphysical Anatomy, because autoimmune diseases and the cases of it seems to actually be on the rise, and the amount of autoimmune diseases that are out there is tremendous. But now we're going to be looking at autoimmune diseases from a little bit of a different perspective, other than maybe it being your genes or maybe from diet or medication. Some people actually can have autoimmune conditions based on certain things that happen due to their environment. But now, in today's class, we're going to be looking at how can emotions affect your internal world, a world that is very invisible to us. And when something is something not necessarily that's inside that you can see inside of the body, it's sometimes hard to really then also understand what is it that it's trying to say, especially when something goes wrong. We have to go based on sensations, emotions, or maybe ailments, or maybe pain and discomfort. Now, how we interpret these symptoms coming forward will, of course, set forward the path of how successfully we will be able to deal with it if we manage to learn and understand what the actual message is, and then to apply the correct solution. Applying a solution is not the problem. I mean, there's plenty of them, but it is applying the correct solution to help to support the body to heal and to come back into balance. Because as with any ailment, it means, or even emotional trauma or stress or depression or anxiety, it means that, of course, there's now something in the body that is out of balance. So just right off the bat, when we just dive straight in, let's go straight into the autoimmune part of it, because that's really where I want to go into like what I would call the nuts and the bolts. So autoimmune diseases are a condition by which the body's immune system is now mistakenly attacking its own tissue. So if you're struggling with this, you will know this, right? So now that is going to lead to inflammation and damage. Now, while the exact causes of autoimmune diseases, we don't always fully understand all of it, because the reasons that can trigger it, it's endless. But research now also is starting to suggest that childhood stress could play a significant role in our development later in life, which is also really interesting, because that is why in this book, I actually touched on that. So stress, what you experience when you are in your mother's womb, plays a very big role. And how much cortisol from her body flooding to your body plays another big role in terms of how resilient you are going to be to inflammation, and also the psychosomatic stress that can exacerbate autoimmune conditions. And from my research, if not even potentially trigger it. You see, I mean, stress, this is all because of stress, but stress is a natural response to challenging or threatening situations. I mean, it's important for our survival. We actually need that stress. We need to be able to feel that. However, the problem now comes as with everything in life, right? Too much of everything is not always good. So chronic and excessive stress, especially during our childhood, this can have long-lasting effects on our health. Now, studies have also shown that children who experience high levels of stress, like, for example, abuse or neglect or family dysfunction, they actually are at an increased risk of developing autoimmune diseases later in their adult life. That's powerful. That data says a lot, right? So now autoimmune disease is also one of up to 80 different inflammatory disorders that affects at least approximately 50 million in the US alone, right? So when a person has an autoimmune disease, the body is producing too many antibodies that is now attacking and actually damaging its own tissue of fighting diseases as they were intended. Now, this also happens in a response to a trigger. Now, oftentimes the trigger is unknown. Remember that long list of triggers we touched on a little bit earlier? But research also has identified now like common triggers, like certain bacterial, it could be viral infections, it could even be medication, which I touched on earlier as well, or certain chemical or environmental toxins. Now, as studies are also showing us more and more and more, we're adding a stressful childhood to that list. I'm not saying everyone who had a stressful childhood is going to have an autoimmune disease, but I know now that you are thinking, but why not? Why is it that some children have a very traumatic, abusive life? They don't have autoimmune disorders or inflammatory disorders versus someone who now went through all of the same trauma, but they're struggling tremendously with their health? That's a great question, and I will be touching on that later in this talk. So, just very briefly, some of the most common autoimmune diseases that research has potentially linked to childhood trauma and stress is rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, diabetes type 1, celiac disease, it was MS, multiple sclerosis, Crohn's disease, ulcers, Hashimoto's, right? Graves' disease, ALS, and the list can go on. Another common one is psoriasis. So one of the ways in which childhood stress can now contribute to the development of autoimmune diseases is through its effects actually on the immune system. So let's go back to chronic stress. Anything that's too much, right? So we talked about how much of something, too much of something can actually be a bad thing. Of course, we know that. And that includes now chronic stress, because chronic stress can dysregulate the immune system, leading to increased inflammation and also a heightened immune response. Now, this in turn can start to increase the risk of autoimmune diseases, where the immune system, as we now know, mistakenly attacks healthy tissues. Now, did you know that up to 80% of adults in one study reported an abnormally high level of emotional and psychological stress immediately prior to diagnosis, even with autoimmune disease? Now, what it means here is that in these cases, abnormal levels of stress hormones that's leading to dysregulation of the immune system, which then leads to autoimmune destruction of the body's tissues. So being diagnosed with an autoimmune condition also puts stress on the mind and the body, leading to ongoing cycle of worsening of the autoimmunity. Why? Because it adds fuel to the fire. So often even just a diagnosis of this condition in itself and how we respond to that diagnosis can make it 10 times worse. It can really flare it up. Now, when we look at childhood stress, now this can also impact the body's ability to regulate stress hormones, right? Like such as cortisol. Because this regulation of stress and hormones, this can actually further contribute to the immune system and the dysfunction and the increase of it, right? Increasing the risk of autoimmune diseases, and then also its effect on the immune system. So childhood stress can also lead to unhealthy coping mechanisms, such as maybe like smoking, overeating, substance abuse, which also now has a known risk factor for autoimmune diseases. But now, not all individuals who experience childhood stress will develop autoimmune diseases. We also have genetic environmental factors. We have other lifestyle factors that can also play a role in the development of this condition. But reducing childhood stress and supporting healthy coping mechanisms can help to reduce the risk of autoimmune diseases later in life. Now, in my research, what I've noticed is that when we look at children who both have had stressful lives and one starts to have autoimmune challenges and the other one doesn't, one thing that I noticed is a huge difference in their mothers and how their mothers handled stress and how stressed they were before they gave birth to that child. You see, the one who had the autoimmune challenges had a mother who was highly stressed. And I mean highly stressed in the sense where that mother's fight or flight response was triggered quite a lot. A lot of suppressed anger, or perhaps even expressed anger. We know people who have anger challenges tend to have, or at least suppressed anger, tend to have inflammation challenges, right? So when we just look at that as an example, that speaks volumes. Volumes. Like I already told you about this book, Psychosomatics of Children, that I wrote in there, how cortisol can actually, it can penetrate the placenta. You know, researchers and scientists, they always think, oh, the placenta is a barrier between the mother and the child. No, it's not. My research since 2008 has shown that this is not the case. How? By addressing certain points and seeing, and with the mother, and seeing a shift in the child. How do you explain that? There has to be more to this. So now when you look, and when I also looked at my research, what I noticed, the significance of that, because the cortisol and what other researchers shows, they show how cortisol actually damages the placenta. Now, what is the placenta? The placenta is what nourishes and feeds you as that unborn child. But the placenta, put in short, it's the startup of your being. It's the startup of your being, giving instructions, giving nutrition, everything to help you to develop. Now, if that foundational aspect of you, your startup of your being, is being poisoned with cortisol, what do you think is going to happen? Nothing good, right? So it has been shown that excessive cortisol being released from the mother, a pregnant mother, to a child, can cause behavioral problems. It can cause organ problems. It can cause speech impairment. It can cause neurological impairment. It's tremendous what can go wrong if a mother who was pregnant stresses too much in fight or flight circumstances, right? Too much anger, too much frustration, whether it's expressed or not, right? A lot of say it's better out than in. Well, it doesn't really matter, because the fact that you're feeling it and it's coming out, you're already feeling it. And the fact that you're feeling it, the fact that it's being experienced viscerally, that's the damage in itself. It doesn't matter where it goes, right? The fact that you're feeling and finding yourself in stressful circumstances that is so traumatic and so stressful, creating this and inducing this fight or flight response that sets off the adrenaline and the cortisol, that's problematic, or at least problematic for the unborn child. Now, comparing that versus the child who had the same abusive or stressful childhood, but the mother didn't necessarily have the same stress as that mother. But now I have seen where the mother with a child who didn't have, where the mother didn't have as much trauma or maybe as much expressed stress, that this child can still have autoimmune problems. So now what? It depends on the mother's resiliency to the environmental stress. And that determines how she biochemically reacts to that stress. And that determines how much cortisol is being released. And that determines how healthy the child is going to be that's born with it. And then on top of that, a child, as we are born with a set of inherited characteristics, different traits, different levels of resilience, different weaknesses, different sensitivities. And then we go through life. And our experiences as a child continues to shape what we were born with. So I have seen children who did have a mother who was very stressed and who came through, even with, organ damage and organ problems with speech impairments, and they also had autoimmune problems. But then, now when we look at that, they tend to resolve also often sometimes these autoimmune conditions when they start to address their emotional stress. I've seen this happen. When they address their emotional stress, diet absolutely can play a very big role, but I have seen people do it without diet. Now, where does that leave all this other research that has been done? It shows you just how emotions can exacerbate pre-existing conditions. But if something has an underlying core, psychosomatic cause, core cause, well, then psychosomatic approaches can maybe resolve it. Are you making the connection? This is really interesting. Done so much research on this. I can talk about it for days. But this already will start to give you a really good idea as to whys, how, and the whats. So what I would love to actually do with you now is to start a very powerful healing meditation to help you to start to go back to childhood in a gentle way and to start to address this childhood stress. And let's see if there is something that we can start to create a beautiful positive ripple effect for you into the here and now. So remember, this is a psychosomatic approach. So I really look forward to doing this with you. I would love for you to take a nice deep breath. And you can lie down or sit up, whatever you feel most comfortable with. And I would love for you to start by just focusing on your breath. Just focus on your breath as you're inhaling and exhaling. And notice as you're inhaling and exhaling, see if you can hear or feel your heartbeat as you do so. When you can start to feel your heartbeat, feeling that bum 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 bum, that shows you that you are really truly starting to become quiet within, being fully present with you. See if you can feel it or hear it. And now, I invite you to hear, feel, see, or sense a waterfall in an open, empty space where you're finding yourself right now. And in that open space, allowing yourself to walk and step underneath that waterfall, feeling that water flowing over you through every single cell in your body. And notice how all that old stress is flowing out of you, down, 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 into the earth. And also feeling how that waterfall is rinsing and releasing exhaustion, stress. And maybe if your body's feeling a little bit swollen or maybe a bit bloated or inflamed, feel the soothingness of that waterfall flowing through every single cell in your body. Imagine that waterfall has this cooling, soothing sensation and effect to it. And feel how it's cooling and soothing your body. Flowing through every single cell in your body, soothing you and relaxing you. And now, I invite you, allowing that waterfall just to gently fade. We can always come back to it a little bit later. And observing now in front of you an open space. And as you have that open space, I invite you now to imagine a staircase. Just 5 steps. And noticing this beautiful handrail coming up and you're walking towards the staircase. Imagine the staircase is made of clear quartz crystal. Or it can be these beautiful white satin steps. Noticing that you're barefoot and you're putting your foot on one step. Feeling the sensations and the cooling effect of these steps. Stepping on one, holding the rail. And then stepping on the second step. Feeling more relaxed. Stepping onto the third step. Allow yourself to continue to hold the rail so you don't lose your balance. And then on the fourth step. And then on the fifth step. And as you're finding yourself taking that fifth step, seeing a door in front of you. And I invite you to open that door. And as you do, walking through the door and there's this light in front of you. I invite you to keep walking. And as you do, seeing this image opening up very gently, very vividly. Seeing this image opening up where you are back at a moment in time in your childhood where you were maybe playing outside. And you're standing there and you're observing this. And as you're observing yourself there, seeing your inner child outside, I invite you now to walk to him or her. And take his or her hand and hold it in your hand. And say to him or her, you are coming with me now. I left you here, I forgot you here, and you are now coming with me. And as you're holding that little hand, picking up your inner child, and holding your inner child there in that moment, and looking at your inner child, and saying to him or her, how you feel is valid. How you feel is valid. Say to him or her, you are allowed to feel what you're feeling right now. It is okay. Say to him or her, you're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to feel frustrated. You're allowed to disagree. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to have a bad day. You are seen and you are heard. I see you now. And I understand now. And you are coming home with me today. Holding your inner child very tightly. I invite you to imagine a beautiful light flowing over the two of you right now. A healing light. And feeling that light bringing forward love, support, protection, balance, stability, innocence, playfulness, happiness, inner balance, gentleness, freedom, playfulness, allowing stress, old anger to drain out of both of you, flowing out of every single cell in you and your inner child as you're standing there, feeling how it's just draining down, 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 down into the earth. Going, 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 going. Noticing that the more you try to hold on to it, the more you realize that you just can't. Because your inner child wants to play now. There's no more time to hold on to things that serves no purpose in your life, in the here and now. Seeing the irony of it, realizing it, and realizing even now in that moment that you and that inner child no longer have to accept these old circumstances, which is no longer real anymore. Holding your inner child. And together now we're going to affirm positive affirmations. And as we do, I invite you to walk with your inner child as you're holding him or her and imagining this beautiful path. Maybe in a forest with a beautiful little road. And the forest needs to be open. Allow there to be space. You can see around you. And as you're walking onto on this path with your inner child, it's listening to these affirmations, both of you now together. I lovingly embrace my inner child and nurture them with kindness. I am safe and protected, and my inner child is safe within me. I release all pain from my past and allow joy to fill my heart. I forgive myself for any mistakes I made in the past. I am worthy, and my inner child is worthy of love and acceptance. My inner child is free to express themselves and to listen to their needs with compassion. I release any feelings of abandonment, and I know that I'm always there for my inner child. I trust myself to always make the right decisions for my inner child's well-being. I'm capable of healing my inner child and creating a life full of happiness and love with him or her. I let go of any old shame or guilt from my past, and I embrace my inner child just as they are, because it is who I am. My inner child is beautiful and valuable, and a valuable part of who I am. And I cherish my inner child. I'm open to receiving healing and energy from my inner child. And I allow them to heal with grace and with ease. I release any fears holding me back and holding my inner child back. And I encourage my inner child to explore the world with curiosity and wonder. I am patient and gentle with my inner child as they heal and grow. I am a loving and nurturing parent to my inner child, giving them the care, the love, and the attention that they need. I let go of any negative beliefs about myself, and I replace them with loving thoughts. My inner child and I are now free to play and to laugh, and I embrace this inner child's joyful spirit. I release any anger or resentment from my past, and I choose now to let go. I can also let go at a time and pace that is comfortable for me. I also trust in the process of healing my inner child, and I know that it is leading both of us to greater peace and happiness. I invite you to continue to hold your inner child and noticing that as you're looking at your inner child with their head here on your neck, fast asleep, fully trusting you as they are in your arms. And I invite you now to see on the path that you are walking, there's a door again. Opening up that door and seeing that beautiful staircase again with those 5 steps. It can be a clear quartz staircase or a white staircase with that beautiful satin on it. It feels so soft and silky, yet you still have a firm grip when you walk on it. And as you're going down that staircase, on the 5th step at the top, and then the 4th step, and noticing as you're coming down, feeling fully and more healed and connected to your inner child, with them right there with you. 3rd step, feeling more balanced, feeling a sense of release in something that just expanded within you. And on the 2nd step, feeling fully balanced and grounded. And on the 1st step, coming back fully into the here and now with your inner child. Realizing and noticing and feeling how you are both healing and how you will continue to heal throughout the day and night. And as you are here, bring your full focus and awareness to the bottom of your feet, grounding you fully into the present moment. As you're opening your eyes, noticing how you're looking at the world from a more joyful, curious, motivated, spirited perspective, feeling that inner child coming through you, ready to explore, ready to play. And you can do so with discernment and balance. Taking a nice deep breath. Very good. One more. Excellent. Thank you so much for being here with me for today's class. And I look forward to seeing you at the next one. And until then, be the light that you are. Bye, everyone. Bye.